Okay, here the lighting's a little bit different for this recording of Red Hot Chile. You can see the microphone better and my face a little better, and the sun has gone down, so you can look out the window and see a little bit of the lights. Although it looks like there's some reflection from the interior lighting, but the mountain scenery gives way at night to just a sea of lights in this city of 7 million people. And I thought you might be interested in seeing both views because that's a summertime view. Of course, the winter view is also great here because the mountains gets covered with snow and the snow keeps going down and down the level. By the time it gets to August, you've got a pretty snowy scene for the most part. It's just spectacular. Well, folks, we'll sign off for now, and maybe we'll let the producers continue here, and I'll go on a little bit further in the show so that they can hear something of the last segment of 2013. The last segment of Red Hot Chile, because the studio shuts down for the last couple of weeks of the year, and they just run reruns of our shows. So let me put us on pause here for a minute, and I'll let my producers cut out this piece so they can make it a little smoother when they put it up on the YouTube broadcast. Viva Chile, viva Chile, a Chile quiero. All right, here we are for the last segment for 2013, the last segment of the last show of 2013. Red Hot Chile, this is your host, Dr. John Cobin. Let's not lose hope, folks. I mean, I don't pull any punches. When something really goes well in Chile, I tell you about it, which is most of the time. But when something goes not well, when things are problematic or some kind of issue, you're going to hear about it from me. And this election was a downer for me in that sense. There's other things in Chile that are bad too, that I don't like, that drive people nuts. And people mention this to me, they just can't stand the bureaucracy here. Folks, I wrote on my blog 5, 6, 7 years ago now, the 10 things that you're going to hate as an American coming down here, the bureaucracy is the top of the list. It is really a hassle having to go through it. It's better now than it used to be. But nobody likes to deal with bureaucracy. There are bureaucrats in Western Europe and in the U.S. and Australia too. It's not like they're only here. But the bureaucracy and dealing with it and not being able to understand or believe what people tell you. I have kind of a 3/5 rule. You ask 5 people the same question, 5 bureaucrats specifically, and the majority, of the answers, that the majoritarian answer is the right one, which isn't necessarily true, but you have a pretty good probability that's going to be the case. You go 2 out of 3, you still got some pretty good risk, and you certainly just don't believe any one particular person that tells you anything. So that's frustrating, and it's frustrating seeing the lying. I just had a student who totally plagiarized in his paper. They don't write papers here, and they get to my class, have to write their first paper in their life, even though they're seniors in college. It's because education's that way, and yet he plagiarized. He literally copied out of Wikipedia, and he doesn't understand that professors nowadays and their teaching assistants can so easily go and just type in a couple sentences or even half a sentence out of your term paper into Google, and there it pops up, in Wikipedia. You just find out if he's got the rest plagiarized, and there it is. And the student had the audacity to write me, and he said, Professor, please, can you give me another chance? And I wrote him back. I said, the only chance you should have is to get kicked out of the university for what you've done. I said, I don't tolerate any kind of theft, and especially not stealing ideas from people like this. This isn't a coincidence of a mutually gained idea with somebody else you weren't aware of. You just copied. You're a cheater, like many Chileans are, and it's a disgusting thing. And that you even asked me for this kind of special privilege is bizarre. In Chile, when they catch people doing stuff like this, they give them a 1 on the paper or the test, which is the lowest grade possible. It's a grade of 1 to 7 in Chile, instead of A to F like it was in the U.S. or other places. And they get a 1, but they get to continue in the course. They didn't even get kicked out of the course. I kick them out of the university. And so I told the guy, absolutely not. I have a different standard. They know I'm pretty rigid and severe about stuff like that. But I don't think there's any other way to do it. And so that's something else like you just hate about Chile is the stealing, the lying, the cheating. These things just drive you nuts. The people that want to cut corners, they arrive late. They get there. They have some lame excuse why they arrived 2 hours late for a meeting or an hour and a half. The traffic was bad. Of course, they didn't bother to call you. It's just a lie. And you called them along the way, and they said they'd be there in 20 minutes, and an hour later they show up. That's so typical here, and that kind of stuff shouldn't be rewarded, in my perspective. And so these things are just great against us as people who come from Western Europe or the U.S. or Canada. We just don't like this kind of cultural difference. But you know what, folks? Let's take a step back. And you've heard all the worst now again from me. And we talked about politics up to this point. That means a lot of bad things that happen in Chile. But let's look on the other side. How would you like to live in a country where there's no political correctness? Just that one thing. You know how much professors suffer with political correctness in the US and how much really everybody else suffers because of that stupid nonsense? Well, here it's not politically correct. In fact, if you're advertising and you need a secretary, you can just go out and say what you want. You want a lady who's slender with a good figure from 24 to 28 years old and long hair. You can just go right out and say it in a classified ad. That's what you want. It's a free market for labor. That'll blow you away the first time you see it, but it certainly is a great breath of fresh air to know that you don't have to kowtow to some leftist drivel, some nonsense, spouted by some leftist academics who want to be extra sensitive. You don't have radical isms here that have a lot of power, like radical ecology, radical feminism, radical homosexual movements. That are all trying to garner rights for themselves. Now, they're here, and you do hear about them doing stuff, but it's not like the U.S., folks. It's way different. How would you like to not have to live with that? How would you like to live with the knowledge that most of the women you meet have not had abortions to kill their babies? That means a lot to me. Now, you may be a person who's not pro-life like me, and maybe that's not a big deal for you, but for some of us, that's a major plus for living here in Chile. How'd you like to live in a place where Social Security is private and you don't just have 13% plus the Medicare extra 2, whatever it is off the top, just confiscated from your salary in the first, whatever it is, $100,000? How would you like to live in a place where all the taxes you pay, 100%, adding up all those taxes, whether it be income taxes, property taxes, etc., only total to about 7% of your income if you're making $100,000 a year? Wow. How much is that worth to you? I mean, ever been to Italy, for instance, a place I spend a lot of time, where people literally are coughing up 30, 40, and some people, 60% of their income and wealth every year in taxes, just coughing it up, folks. So the list goes on, and I haven't even touched things like the natural beauty of the place, or that you can, not to worry about a cop tasering you or spraying you with something or beating you or being obnoxious or doing the strip search things that the TSA does or whatever else. I mean, all the bad things in the U.S. like that don't exist here. And those things are fabulous parts of Chile. And so the list is longer and it goes on and on. So anytime I hear people complaining about the bureaucracy or these horrible things about theft, cheating, which I totally concur with, that there are problems, I remind them, look, the grass is not always greener on the other side. There are problems in your old country too, as you've fondly forgotten because you just remember that they didn't have this particular problem. Politics isn't much different. I mean, the United States is a big power brokering game. Certainly Obama, the Republicans, how do you say, Republicans, I forgot the word we use. Anyway, the mixture, between the two. There's not much difference between the two major parties. It's just a big showmanship, big game, a populist ploy and power brokering. It's not much different than what we see here in Chile. Chile, they're more blatant about it. The way they cover the news is a little different here. If you listen to them, that's not the same sort of rhetoric you have in the U.S. It's still a little bit of a traditional society, backwards in the sense of values and how you treat elderly and how you treat children and family and so forth. Very refreshing. So I don't think we need to rail on Chile or lose hope. This is definitely a strike, but it's a warning shot over the bow. We need to combat it. We need to go forward and do a good job and continue to move ahead, especially those of us who are libertarian evangelicals or old school Catholics who have a strong sense of moral urgency and conviction. This is the time to act. Well, there was an article that came out in the John Birch Society's publication called The New American on Bachelet. Freedom and prosperity threatened in Chile with the election of socialists, is what it says. That's a guy named Alex Newman, it says he was a foreign correspondent, or is a foreign correspondent for The New American, normally based in Europe. After growing up in Latin America, he came up and talked about this fear that he has that we might have a resurgence of communism here, and that Bachelet's claiming she's not going to be as light as she was the first time through. That, I mean, she did go to the UN and get indoctrinated there, and now she's reminiscing how wonderful it was to live behind the Iron Curtain and grow up in Eastern Germany, or East Germany. And it may be that she'll become radicalized. Now, I don't think that's going to be the case. I may be wrong, and you'll hear it first from me again. But the things that he's talking about here, that us going down the same slippery slope and moving to the same communist style of governments that we see all around the rest of Latin America, probably won't happen. He also has a strange bias to talk about the U.S. as still some kind of a bastion of liberty, that the U.S. is going to lose a capitalist, freedom-loving friend. Folks, Chile is a freer country than the United States. I mean, they're not going to be losing that in the sense that they are some paragon of virtue when it comes to libertarian principles in the United States. Certainly not the case. I mean, anything from drug laws to gun laws to different kinds of procedures for family courts to tax law and foreign wars. I mean, the United States is not a libertarian country. It is not the country of the founding fathers, and Chile is a freer place. Despite all of its problems, Chile is still a freer place than the United States. I'll say that unequivocally, folks. I mean, and if you don't see that, just do a little more research. Start with my blog, EscapeAmericaNow.Info, and move forward and check out some other things on the internet. You'll see some of these policies Chile has. Just the private road system. I mentioned private Social Security earlier. How well private medical care is run, how much more efficiently when it's not entwined with rent-seeking insurance companies and ambulance-chasing lawyers and other people that are using the political process to pad their pockets. This is not a huge government problem here. Remember, Chile's government is smaller than has a budget that's smaller than Korea's main company, Samsung. So I'm proud of that. I'm proud we have a relatively small government. I wish it were smaller, of course, being a libertarian. But it's still not the behemoth states or welfare states or entitlement mentality that's so prevalent in the Northern Hemisphere. So let's not get things out of proportion here. And I think in some sense, he's a little bit too much of an alarmist and too worried about what might be happening here in Chile. He could be right. I will say that this guy could be right about what he's saying about Chile, but I just don't think it's going to be the case. I think we're going to pick up. We'll go down a road for a little ways. It's not pleasant, and we will continue to pound and attack. And the libertarians will come up in arms and go against and point out the foibles of this, and will write and continue to make an influence. And people in the center will back off, and they're going to realize that socialism doesn't fulfill its promises. You don't have less poverty when you have more socialism. You don't have more peace when you have socialism. You don't even have more equity. You just have different people that are wealthy and powerful, especially party members, when you have more socialism. The rich still maintain what they've got. You don't have, unless you have just an absolute bloody, Maoist kind of thing. You have a society continued in its feudal strata, and feudalism will continue to be the name of the game here in Chile. You're not going to get something for nothing. Other ways you can help, again, not losing hope. Remember freedomorchard.com. We've seen Galt's Gulch fall on its face, and it's got to. And if you haven't read the latest Berwick piece about him Jeff Berwick, about boasting about going to jail and escaping while he's in St. Kitts, and talking about how he's at a bar, came out somewhat drunk, and they thought he was rowdy, and they planted some cocaine, he says, on the ground, said it was his. They charged him, and he got all his friends call him to get him out of jail. I mean, is this a guy you really want to be involved with? This is public knowledge. He's writing about this, boasting that he leads this kind of lifestyle, folks. Is that the kind of sustainable community you want to be involved with what Jeff Berwick's offering? I don't think so. Remember Freedom Orchard. I'm not telling you anything about Berwick and Ken Johnson, those guys that you can't already find out about on the net. I mean, that's their worldview, their way of doing things. They're not doing well, just like when you listen to his interview about Bitcoins. He doesn't say that people are buying it with Bitcoins. People are not buying into his project. We at Freedom Orchard are the lead libertarian play here. We're the ones who are the most activist, the most solid worldview, that can really make a difference in this country. So if you want to know how do you really help Chile, get involved with Freedom Orchard. Go to freedomorchard.com, send me an email to jcobin@policyofliberty.net, and I'll send you the password so you can get a look at the business plan. We've got a number of investors considering considerable capital investments now, and we're going to make it work. We're going to make a sustainable community where libertarians are welcome come and truly change Chile for the better. That's our hope for the future, folks. Don't be disparaged and despair because of the elections. Things are going to get better, I think, here, and you're going to make it happen through libertarian activism. This has been a Red Hot Chile with Dr. John Cobin. We'll see you next year. On a YouTube video, I ran out of time, so got my headphones off here, but I'll turn off the video in just a minute too, just so you can get the closing shots for our last segment of the year. And here we go. Hope to see you all again in 2014 and under vastly better circumstances. As always, signing off, Dr. John Cobin.